You're listening to the Acadiana's Morning News Podcast, brought to you by LABI and always on KPEL965.com.
Start breathing and feeling your best again with Navage. Navage.
I've had people ask me how I find relief, and I tell them Navage immediately. This thing is amazing.
Navage is available at Navage.com or at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid.
I heard the call to serve, so I answered. I earned a title and discovered my purpose. I found belonging, an unbreakable bond with my fellow Marines. We fought to overcome adversity together in defense of our nation and its people. I've lived a full life, rich with meaning. And even though I no longer wear the uniform, I am still a Marine. My service has come full circle. I will always look after those around me. I will always uplift and support my country and my community. Because that is the promise I made. That is what it means to be a Marine. Semper Fidelis. Always faithful, always Marine.
Russell Wilson here. We play 60, United Way in the NFL are helping kids play at least 60 minutes a day.
Healthy kids.
To get involved, go to unitedway.org/play60.
Donate.
Are you guys going to do that every time?
Yes, of course.
Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
For those fortunate enough to help the person who has always been their hero, find the care guides you need to help at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL, Breaux Bridge, Lafayette, broadcasting from the Matthew James Tax and Wealth Management Studios.
Israel's head of intelligence resigns. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. Major General Aron Haliva stepping down for failing to prevent last year's Hamas terror attack that triggered the war in Gaza.
In his resignation statement, Major General Haliva says the agency did not live up to the task and he will carry the horrible pain of the war with him forever. Surveys suggest most Israelis blame Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for security failures leading up to the attack.
Fox's Jonathan Savage. The anti-Israel protests continue at Columbia University in New York City, where students will have virtual remote classes today as Passover begins, days after police made more than 100 arrests breaking up a pro-Palestinian encampment. In a few hours, former President Trump will return to court in New York. But before opening statements start at his first criminal trial, the judge will consider
what prosecutors can bring up from Trump's previous court cases if he testifies in his own defense at this trial. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office is looking to cross-examine the former president about the judgment and gag order in his New York civil fraud trial. Prosecutors also want to bring up the verdicts from the two E. Jean Carroll cases. Now, once the judge decides on that, the prosecution will formally introduce its case to the jury.
Fox's Brooke Sigmund, the former president charged with falsifying records in 2016 payments to keep an alleged affair quiet. He calls the case political persecution. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is getting new members. I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. Ozzy Osbourne and Foreigner and Peter Frampton and Jimmy Buffett and the Dave Matthews Band will be inducted, along with some not-so-rock performers like Kool and the Gang, A Tribe Called Quest, Mary J. Blige, Dionne Warwick, and Cher. She might want to. A year ago, Cher said she'd be snubbed by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and wouldn't go in if they gave her $1 million. America's listening to Fox News.
Hey guys, Donald Trump Jr. here. Let me ask you this. Does inflation feel worse than what we're being told in the news? That's because the official inflation rate doesn't tell the whole story. Since January 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. You can't get that money back. But what you can do is stop your losses today. How? By diversifying your savings into a gold IRA from my friends at Birch Gold Group. When you're done, your money will be parked in a tangible asset with a proven history. To see how it works, get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word PROTECT to 989898. I trust Birch Gold. They provide an easy process to roll over your 401k or IRA into gold without losing your tax-advantaged status. So text PROTECT to 989898. That's PROTECT to the number 989898 to get your free info kit on gold IRAs from Birch Gold.
Message and data rates may apply.
The Senate could vote tomorrow to approve the House's version of a foreign aid package the Senate first okayed weeks ago, giving military aid to Israel and Taiwan. $61 of the $95 billion of total aid will go to Ukraine to help battle Russia's invasion. Some Republicans voted against that, saying we've given Ukraine enough. But GOP Congressman Darrell Issa voted for that assistance, telling Fox we have to help Ukraine defeat Russia.
There aren't enough people who remember the Cold War and why we fought it.
Some conservatives are so upset, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they hope to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson for even allowing that vote, months after Speaker McCarthy was ousted for working with Democrats.
Congresswoman Greene has not invoked her motion to vacate Speaker Mike Johnson's office yet, but is clear on her feeling.
This is a speakership that is completely over with.
On Fox's Sunday Morning Futures, she said the House vote put Ukraine's needs ahead of the southern border. In her mind, it's time for another change in leadership, and it's the Speaker who should act first.
To resign and allow us to move forward in a controlled process. Yeah. If he doesn't do so, he will be vacated.
The House is in recess this week. Congresswoman Greene says she hopes members will discuss her motion in their districts. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
On Wall Street, stock futures are rising. After all the recent selling, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 have gone down 6 trading days in a row. The Dow rose slightly last week, however. In the NBA playoffs, no Giannis Antetokounmpo. No problem. For Milwaukee, they have Damian Lillard.
Off balance. He's got it! And the foul! Unstoppable!
Lillard scored all 35 of his points in the first half, leading the Bucks past the Indiana Pacers 109-94 on TNT in Game 1. 3 other home teams also won playoff series openers: Boston, Oklahoma City, and the LA Clippers. Florida, Winnipeg, Vancouver, and the New York Rangers won their NHL playoff series opening games. I'm Dave Anthony. This is Fox News.
Your 24/7 news source, on air, online, and with the KPEL News app. Now the headlines from the KPEL News Center.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Wertz with a look at news on this Monday, April 22nd. The next round of 50 Louisiana National Guard troops have mobilized in support of Operation Lone Star at the U.S. border in Texas. Task Force Commander Captain Zach Neely says the Louisiana troops have integrated well with their Texas counterparts. National Guard troops have patrolled the southern border to prevent, detect, and deter illegal migrant crossings. The goal of 2 bills making their way through the legislature is to repeal the 3-year rule. It ensures property policyholders that their carrier cannot drop their coverage after 3 years. Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple says the bills are focused on revitalizing the insurance marketplace in Louisiana, but Ben Riggs with Real Reform Louisiana opposes the bills and says the state's insurance crisis is two-pronged: lack of availability and affordability. He says the bill would allow carriers to cancel up to 5% of their 3-year protected policies without cause. They would also have the option to cancel with more permission from the insurance commissioner, and those requests would not be subject to public disclosure. House Bill 611 and Senate Bill 370 are nearing final legislative approval. Baton Rouge Senator Cleo Fields would like to see every school bus in Louisiana have heating and air conditioning by August 1st, 2025, and there are federal grants available to help school systems pay for it. The president of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents says although many districts are already transitioning to climate-controlled buses, they may not be able to complete the task by the 2025-26 school year. Fields told the Senate Finance Committee he may change the wording of his bill to allow more time. The Louisiana Highway Safety Commission's Buckle Up in Your Truck campaign is running now through Saturday. The group is sponsoring the campaign because drivers of pickup trucks are less likely to wear their seatbelts, and those vehicles are more susceptible to rolling over in a crash. Research from the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration shows that 61% of all pickup truck drivers and passengers who were killed in rural areas were not wearing their seatbelts. In sports news, the Raging Cajuns lost 2 of 3 games against Coastal Carolina over the weekend. Louisiana couldn't overcome errors and walks and fell 9-1 on Friday. The Cajuns took Game 2 on Saturday 8-6, but fell short in the third game 12-10. They returned to action on Wednesday night at the Teague against Houston Christian starting at 6 o'clock. Tickets for that game are available at RagingCajuns.com. LSU is a national champion in gymnastics for the first time in the program's 50-year history. The Tigers scored a 198.225 to beat out California, Utah, and Florida. The championship also cements Haley Bryant's legacy as the greatest LSU gymnast in history. LSU will hold a parade for the national champs on Wednesday. That's a look at your news. I'm Tracy Wirtz.
This hour of Acadiana's Morning News has been brought to you by Jani King. The King of Clean has been a leader in the cleaning industry on the Gulf Coast for over 35 years. To find out more about their cleaning and disinfecting services, head to their website at janiking.com.
Gentlemen, I want to talk to you for just a moment about shoes. If you're like my husband, you go to the store, you walk around in several pair, you think, okay, these feel great, and then you have to live every day in them and your feet hurt. What if I told you there's a way that you could alleviate that problem? The Good Feet store, been telling you about it for months now, and they could be the answer to sore feet, sore knees, sore hips, sore back. That's right. Remember, I've told you that I've suffered with back pain for years now, probably a quarter of a century. And the Good Feet store has helped me to wake up pain-free some days. I get home in the afternoons. I can still do all of the things I need to do around the house without feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to put my feet up and I need to take my shoes off. The Good Feet store could be the answer for you. You don't have to wait. You just have to pop in. So maybe you have a few minutes between meetings or you're on your way from one place to another. Go by and visit with their knowledgeable staff. Ask all the questions you need. Sore feet could be gone for you. Go by the Good Feet store. They're on Ambassador Caffrey, right next to Chicken Salad Chick. Or you can go read more about them at goodfeet.com. Stop living in shoes and boots that just hurt your feet. You could find the answer at the Good Feet store. The Rustic Renegade is your one-stop shop in Lafayette for firearms, concealment furniture, men's grooming products, and our locally roasted coffee.
Mostly sunny skies across Acadiana today. A little cool out there this morning. It should be warming up fairly nicely. Temperatures eventually in the lower 70s. Winds today from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Staying nice and cool out there today. We'll be back in the low 50s overnight tonight, and a similar forecast coming up again for tomorrow. We'll start to warm up and be a little muggier by the end of the week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
We do have a couple of issues on the roadways early this morning. They've been working an accident, Carmel Drive in Pinhook, for a while. Hopefully that has been moved off the roadway. Also, a vehicle fire being reported at South City Parkway and Johnston Street. Temperature as you wake up on this Monday morning, 49 degrees. Good morning and welcome into Acadiana's Morning News. Tracy Wirtz, Mark Pope joining you. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
KPEL News Time is 6:12 on this Earth Day. It's Earth Day today, always on April 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
Passover begins today. It's National Jelly Bean Day.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
National Girl Scout Leaders Day. It's also National Baseball Day.
Really?
We had a lot of baseball over the weekend. Yep.
Yeah.
And it is international, or no, it's not international. It's National In God We Trust Day because on this date in 1864, Congress authorized the use of the phrase, "In God We Trust" on U.S. coins.
I like it.
Still stays on our currency today. On this date in 1884, General Laborer Thomas Stevens started his first bicycle trip around the world. So I guess he rode across the United States, hopped on a boat, went across the big pond, and then continued. At least, that stands to reason, right?
I guess he's a better man than me.
No kidding.
I'm not doing any round-the-world bicycle trip.
On this date in 1915, the first full-scale use of deadly chemicals in warfare took place as German forces unleashed chlorine gas against Allied troops in Belgium during World War I. Thousands of soldiers are believed to have died. And in 1952, as we discovered other ways to hurt each other, an atomic test in Nevada became the first nuclear explosion shown on live network television as a 31 kiloton bomb was dropped from a B-50 Super Fortress. On this date in 1970, 20 million Americans mobilized to call for greater protections for our planet, and it became the first Earth Day. And on this date, I remember this like vividly, Mark. On this date in 2004, Army Ranger Pat Tillman, who had traded a multi-million-dollar NFL contract to serve in Afghanistan, was killed by friendly fire. He was 27.
I know.
And when I read that, I think of his picture popping up all over social media.
Salute to Ranger Tillman for his service.
Absolutely. It is April 22nd. It's also my husband's birthday today. He's double nickels.
Man, you got it. Just
I know, busy
whole
day.
complete list.
Yeah, he's double nickels, and I'm not letting him forget that for 6 weeks he's 2 years older than
Well, I was going to do a little play on words. That's funny. When you said, how am I was going to say, I'm 49. Wait, no, it's 49 outside.
Yeah.
So age is a number. It's if you have a good attitude, if you think you're old, you're old.
Mm-hmm.
If you think young, I think that's good for one's health.
This week, Festival International Week, we'll talk more about that coming up later this morning. Also, Chris Babin with the Better Business Bureau. Ooh, I might not have had enough coffee.
BBB.
Will be in the 7 o'clock hour. In the 8 o'clock hour, we'll start out talking about health with our friends at Professional Arts Pharmacy. And then at 8:30, Ron Chakowski, I just like to say that name now that I know how, with the Acadiana Planning Commission will be in. Tell us about projects that they've got their eye on and are in the works that could affect us in the weeks, months, and years to come. KPEL News Time, 6:15.
On Tech.
Another hole opens in Apple's walled garden, at least in its European one. European regulators have been targeting Apple for monopolistic behavior, and that work has forced a number of changes in how Apple operates and builds its consumer tech. It was the EU's new laws that forced Apple to abandon its proprietary charging and data port called Lightning for something USB-C compatible. It was also the EU that pushed Apple to allow third-party apps not found on the Apple App Store, which developers complain charged unfair fees. And now in Europe, Apple may have to allow third-party payment platforms access to the phone's tap-and-pay tech, meaning they won't need to use Apple Pay to make use of that feature at retail stores. And while this affects European markets, Apple has its critics among U.S. regulators who could be seeking similar rules. With Fox on Tech, I'm Eben Brown, Fox News.
This is Poll Paris with Fox News Director of Polling, Dana Blanton.
We just released Fox News Battleground State surveys. Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. All states President Biden narrowly won in 2020, and all states where he ties or trails Donald Trump in a hypothetical two-way race. They tie in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Trump is ahead by 3 points in Michigan and 6 in Georgia. Neither advantage is outside the poll's margin of error. It's noteworthy more voters disapprove than approve of the job Biden is doing by at least 10 points in each state. However, a big reason the races are close is in each state, about 10% of those disapproving still support Biden over Trump. When third-party candidates are included, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. receives single-digit support. The big question is, who does he hurt? In these states, Kennedy's backing comes a bit more from Trump than Biden. But other third-party candidates, Cornel West, Jill Stein, siphon a few points from Biden without taking from Trump. I'm Dana Blanton, and that's your Poll Paris.
Wonderful forecast across Acadiana over the next couple of days. Getting a little bit of cooler weather here to start the week. Those temperatures going to sit down in the lower 70s. We'll get some evenings with the lows getting down into the 50s next couple nights as well. So things are looking pretty good. A lot of sunshine out there. Winds from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour, gusting maybe a little bit higher. We will start to see the winds become a little more southerly. We will be warmer and muggier by the end of the work week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
All right, taking a look at traffic this morning, we have an accident, 100 block of Vero School Road. That's near Fortune. A vehicle fire being reported at South City Parkway and Johnston Street. Be careful in those areas. Current temperature 49 degrees. KPEL News Time is 6:21 on this Monday, April 22nd. Tracy Wertz, Mark Pope joining you. Thank you for joining us. Over the weekend, Mark, it seemed like the national news was just fraught with details about the $95 billion spending bill that was passed late last week. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene is very much up in arms, as are a couple of the other members. And I say a couple, there's like two, and we'll hear more about that throughout the morning, with Mike Johnson. You know, off with his head. That's what every time I hear it, that's what I think. Off with his head. They really are upset with him. And I read an article yesterday or the day before, and one of the representatives said, we were really tired of it, and we just decided, okay, we'll elect this guy because nobody really knows him. He'll be fine. He's conservative. They kind of looked at his bio, I think. I don't know that was the case. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot more thought went into it than that.
Oh, yeah.
That's just my 2 cents.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I think that particular representative downplayed it. Mike Johnson will be featured in an interview today in Real Clear Politics. It's called A Beleaguered Gentleman, Speaker Mike Johnson, or we published today. And it's really interesting, some of the things that Johnson says. And I'm going to quote, Johnson rather says, "You assume risk when you take this job. We don't back away from risk. I'm going to do the right thing. What is popular isn't always right. What's right isn't always popular." So we'll see how all this breaks down tomorrow, or the Senate could vote as early tomorrow on this spending bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's complicated. It's complicated. Mm-hmm. You know, it's aid to Ukraine, mm-hmm. aid to Israel, mm-hmm. and lest we forget Taiwan.
Right.
And those are our Asian partners over there. And, you know, you look for the breakdown, and the initial breakdown I got was of $26 billion going to Israel. About $4 billion would be dedicated to replenishing Israel's missile defense system, mm-hmm. but we're not through with weapons yet, so right. keep that in mind. More than $9 billion of the total would go toward humanitarian assistance in Gaza, mm-hmm. among the war over in the Gaza Strip. But what we're told is that Hamas, the terrorist group who is behind this war with Israel, they end up with a lot of the money. And I don't know how you control that, but I don't know. It's just really complicated. Now, there are things that we're not hearing. For example, Mike Johnson is putting things in there, for example, sanctions against Iran. Mm-hmm. Those are things that he negotiated into, because remember, each of those bills was separate.
Right.
It wasn't as though they lumped them all together and said, okay, vote for the $95 billion total for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. No, they did them separately.
Right.
And so Mike Johnson was able to negotiate some good things in there. We do need sanctions against Iran. Iran is behind all this terrorism over in Israel, and they need to have sanctions on them. Joe Biden pulled the sanctions off when he got in office.
Yeah. Good morning, caller. KPEL. Hi.
Hey, good morning. This is Tony. I'm calling from the road. Thank y'all for discussing Mike Johnson this morning. I have an emoji for him. He's Clark Kent, and he turns into Superman because he is mild-mannered. And everybody that I know that knows him since childhood says he is the same person. He is the go-to person. He's a rock. And when you listen to what he says, I'm going to let democracy take its, take whatever road it's going to, I've got to bring these things up for vote. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. And you can either vote for it or you can vote against it. I agree with Pope that he negotiated some good deals, and the majority of the money that we've dedicated for wars actually has been reinvested in our own infrastructure here for rebuilding our manufacturing. And I got into the weeds with that last night, and all of the major defense contractors and some here in Louisiana and close to our borders are getting contracts for refurbishing aircraft, updating electronics, and missile defense systems. We may export that to those other countries as a part of the aid package, but it's there. You can see exactly who's getting what. I think there's 4 contracts that are still to be determined according to Department of Defense contract site.
Thank you so much. And it sounds like you've done some homework, and we certainly appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks.
Be safe. Have a good day. And, and those are, it sounds like she's really invested in this and trying to do her homework well, which is what most Americans should do.
And you have to dig deep, Tracy, because the legacy media, the corporate media, is not going to tell you about these things that Mike Johnson has negotiated into the bill. Now, the big bugaboo that we're leaving out is that his criticism, especially from Marjorie Taylor Greene and 2 other Republicans, is that there's nothing in there for the southern border. And this is true, even if there were provisions in there to address the flood of illegals coming across the southern border. I do not trust our current administration if they're not enforcing the law now. Right. Just because they're given money for the southern border doesn't mean that they're going to properly use it or start abiding by the law.
Well, I mean, look what happened to Mayorkas last week.
Yeah,
I mean, they dismissed. The 2 articles of impeachment against him.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't surprised, but it made me mad.
It's mind-boggling. And look, here's a precedent, okay? In our country's history, 22 federal government officials have been impeached. 22. All of those incidents had a trial in the United States Senate, except in cases whereby the accused either resigned or died. Mm-hmm. This is the first in our American history where the Senate did not do its constitutional duty in carrying out those articles of impeachment that were delivered by the House of Representatives to the U.S. Senate, and that is a crying shame. That is a bad precedent.
It's a horrible, and the thing is that it's like anything else, even with private citizens. Essentially, he got a grand jury indictment, right, from the House of Representatives, and they said there's enough evidence to bring him to trial.
Yep.
That would be the same thing as a judge getting an indictment and saying, we're just not going to have this trial.
There's not enough evidence. That's what Schumer said, and that's just a crying shame. You do not get to make that ruling, sir. The Constitution lines that there shall be a fair and impartial trial in the U.S. Senate. You shot that down. You destroyed part of our Constitution with your ruling, Mr. Schumer.
You don't get to choose. You don't get to choose who's innocent and who's guilty. It's about a trial by peers, and that's essentially what this was. And they just decided to toss it. We're just going to toss it.
And it's not Schumer alone. The Democrats all voted. Nope. We're not going to hear it. And that's just that's not good for our country.
Regardless of what you think Mayorkas did or didn't do, they owed it to Americans to follow through and to obey the Constitution and do their jobs.
Yep.
They haven't done them yet, so we'll see what happens. Okay, pal, news time is 6:30. I see the phone ringing, but we've got to take a break for news, and we'll get to that call in just a minute.
With the Speaker's Lobby, the U.S. helped shoot down Iranian missiles and drones bound for Israel recently. So does that mean the U.S. is involved in a shooting war with Iran? This comes down to interpretations of war powers and whether the Biden administration needs to seek congressional authorization to justify its actions. Multiple administrations have used the 2001 authorization for use of military force, or AUMF, for 9/11, and the 2002 AUMF for the war in Iraq, and 2003 for a variety of additional operations abroad for decades now. The administration can use the War Powers Resolution of 1973 to justify any military action. The administration just needs to report back to Congress what it's doing abroad, sans a declaration of war or an AUMF. Under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Congress has the power to declare war. But under Article 2, Section 2, the president is commander-in-chief. Congress has only declared war 11 times. The last such declaration was in 1942 against Romania. With the Speaker's Lobby, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
KPEL covers Acadiana with Lowry's Printing and Copying.
38th Annual Le Festival International de Louisiane happens Wednesday, April 24th through Sunday, April 28th throughout downtown Lafayette. This is the world's largest cultural and music festival, and it's free. You can volunteer to be a festival helper in many ways. Just show up and tell them you'd like to volunteer. Get the complete music lineup and everything available at the festival at their website, festivalinternational.org. Saturday, April 27th in New Iberia, Festival of Live Oaks happens 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at New Iberia City Park. A barbecue cook-off, train rides, petting zoo, fun jumps, and other activities for the kids. Too much to mention here. To get more details, give them a call at 337-369-2337. See you in New Iberia, Saturday, April 27th, Festival of Live Oaks.
This is House Call for Health. April is Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. Experts say this incurable neurological disorder affects about 1 million people just in the U.S. Parkinson's impacts the neurons that control your speech and movement. So if you see someone who's exhibiting symptoms like tremors, speech difficulty, or trouble moving, it may be because their muscles become stiff or tighten involuntarily. Researchers are trying to find the cause of the illness to help them find a cure. Some resources available for people coping with Parkinson's include living facilities, medical care, and support groups for patients and families. To learn more about the illness, experts recommend speaking with a trained medical professional. There have been several high-profile celebrities with Parkinson's who've tried to help raise awareness, including Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
This hour brought to you by Matthew James Tax and Wealth Management. Online at MatthewJames.com.
Your 24/7 news source. On air, online, and with the KPEL News app. Now the headlines from the KPEL News Center.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Wertz with a look at news on this Monday, April 22nd. The next round of 50 Louisiana National Guard troops have mobilized in support of Operation Lone Star at the U.S. border in Texas. Task Force Commander Captain Zach Neely says the Louisiana troops have integrated well with their Texas counterparts. National Guard troops have patrolled the southern border to prevent, detect, and deter illegal migrant crossings. The goal of two bills making their way through the legislature is to repeal the 3-year rule. It ensures property policyholders that their carrier cannot drop their coverage after 3 years. Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple says the bills are focused on revitalizing the insurance marketplace in Louisiana, but Ben Riggs with Real Reform Louisiana opposes the bills and says the state's insurance crisis is two-pronged: lack of availability and affordability. He says the bill would allow carriers to cancel up to 5% of their 3-year protected policies without cause. They would also have the option to cancel with more permission from the insurance commissioner, and those requests would not be subject to public disclosure. House Bill 611 and Senate Bill 370 are nearing final legislative approval. Baton Rouge Senator Cleo Fields would like to see every school bus in Louisiana have heating and air conditioning by August 1st, 2025, and there are federal grants available to help school systems pay for it. The president of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents says although many districts are already transitioning to climate-controlled buses, they may not be able to complete the task by the 2025-26 school year. Fields told the Senate Finance Committee he may change the wording of his bill to allow more time. Baker High School juniors and seniors who keep their grades up and have acceptable conduct in school will be rewarded with a 4-day school week. Superintendent J.T. Schroeder says instead of negative reinforcement for students, he suggested one with a positive twist. For students who don't make the grade, Schroeder says Friday will be dedicated to helping them work on subjects where they're struggling. Of the 75 students in each grade, Schroeder says about 25% of them would qualify for a 4-day school week, but he's hoping with this new incentive that number will grow. The Louisiana Highway Safety Commission's Buckle Up in Your Truck campaign is running now through Saturday. The group is sponsoring the campaign because drivers of pickup trucks are less likely to wear their seatbelts, and those vehicles are more susceptible to rolling over in a crash. Research from the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration shows that 61% of all pickup truck drivers and passengers who were killed in rural areas were not wearing their seatbelts. U.S. Department of Homeland Security has launched the No to Protect campaign to educate parents about the dangers of online sexual exploitation and how to protect their children. Special Agent Jessica Zappardo says if your child is a victim of such abuse, do not delete any messages, do not engage with the perpetrator, and do contact local law enforcement. She adds that the problem is rampant in Louisiana. Officials cut the ribbon Friday on a new $1 million playground at Parc Sans-Souci in downtown Lafayette. The privately funded project next to the Children's Museum offers equipment designed for kids of all ages and abilities. In sports news, the Raging Cajuns lost 2 of 3 games against Coastal Carolina over the weekend. Louisiana couldn't overcome errors and walks and fell 9-1 on Friday. The Cajuns took game 2 on Saturday 8-6, but fell short in the third game 12-10. They returned to action on Wednesday night at the Teague against Houston Christian starting at 6 o'clock. Tickets for that game are available at RagingCajuns.com. LSU is a national champion in gymnastics for the first time in the program's 50-year history. The Tigers scored a 198.225 to beat out California, Utah, and Florida. The championship also cements Haley Bryant's legacy as the greatest LSU gymnast in history. LSU will hold a parade for the national champs on Wednesday. That's a look at your news. I'm Tracy Wirt.
Now,
Eleanor's diagnosis is acute myeloid leukemia.
this is a St. Jude moment.
Immediately when we got here, you get a nurse that walks around with you like for the first 3 days you're here to kind of give you the lay of the land and where to go. They know you're already drowning from the news that you're getting and why you're here. So they don't want you to have to figure stuff out by yourself. I know like you're here and you're not supposed to be happy or you're not supposed to smile, but it's hard not to when there's this giant community of strangers all working towards one goal. It doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter what they believe. They are all fighting to end childhood cancer, and I think that's something that should be celebrated.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Party at Rock and Bowl all weekend, starting on Thursday with Gerard Delafosse. Friday, Wayne Tubes plus 4 horses. Saturday, the Rouge Crew. Sunday, Gino Delafosse and French Rockin' Boogie. Tickets now at rockandbowl.com. God bless you, God love you, and thank God for you.
Mostly sunny skies across Acadiana today. A little cool out there this morning. It should be warming up fairly nicely. Temperatures eventually in the lower 70s. Winds today from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Stay nice and cool out there today. We'll be back in the low 50s overnight tonight, and a similar forecast coming up again for tomorrow. We'll start to warm up and be a little muggier by the end of the week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
There is a traffic signal malfunction at Johnston Street and Garfield. Treated as a 4-way. Vehicle accident, Vero School Road near its intersection with Fortune Road. Those are the 2 slowdowns so far this morning. 49 degrees as the sun rises on this Monday morning. KPEL News time is 6:43. Hopefully we aren't singing that anytime soon. Another one bites the dust, Mark. Yeah, House Speaker Mike Johnson, of course, under fire, and that only intensified when the House passed their, $95 billion spending bill on Friday. The Senate could vote on it as early as tomorrow. There is an article in Real Clear Politics about Mike Johnson. They did a write-up on him, and they sat down and they talked to him just to bring you, or to remind you, the Louisiana Republican was the 4th choice after Kevin McCarthy was ousted last October. The 4th nominee was different, and I mentioned that I had read an article. This was it. Texas Representative Michael McCall, who is chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, said, "We were finally just so sick of it that we all threw up our hands and said, we don't have anything against this guy. Let's just go with him." 3 weeks of infighting ended when the conservative and centrist wings of the GOP made peace and Congress elected Johnson as the man for the job and to step in. And here's what I remember. I mean, believe it or not, it's only been, about 6 months since he's had the job? Barely.
If that, yeah. Coming up on
barely.
That, maybe, yeah.
And right at first, they were really excited about him. And as time has gone on, the Republicans, those that are very far to the right, and I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene mostly, but 2 other Republicans have decided that they don't like what he's done and they want to call for his ouster as well. Now, that poses a big problem, an even bigger problem, I'll say, for the Republican Party, because who are you going to put in there? The Democrats don't necessarily support another ouster, but if the Republicans oust him, there is the likelihood that Hakeem Jeffries could be named Speaker of the House, and he is a Democrat.
Yep.
So,
well, it's going to be messy. It's not going to be, you talk about the visuals, the optics. The optics are not going to be good for the Republican Party. Look, with this foreign aid bill, it seems like there was a big push for it. It passed all the bills which were voted on separately. They all passed with good margins, solid margins. And, the thing that I question is the FISA bill, which is a little bit different. That's Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And here's the bottom line, Tracy. I do not trust the federal government. I do not trust this Biden administration. Everything with the budget items and now this FISA situation, and it was passed if the Senate passes it, which they will, it will only stand for 2 years. And then, so the idea is if Donald Trump wins, then he will be able to rework that FISA Act. And but I think everything pertains to, all this reaction toward Mike Johnson and what he's doing is there is a lack of trust for the federal government, specifically the Biden administration. I don't know.
Of that $95 billion, you mentioned that $26 billion deals with Israel. $61 billion will go to Ukraine and replenishing U.S. weapons stockpiles. And then $8 billion for helping U.S. allies in the Indo-Pacific region and countering China. A large portion of that, more than half actually, will go to provide replenish U.S. weapons provided to Taiwan and other regional allies. So it's going to be interesting to see what the developments are from here, because although 3 Republicans are very outdone with Mike Johnson, will it actually go to a vote in the House of Representatives? Will it get that far? That's the question.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting week.
Most definitely.
There is no doubt about that one.
KPEL News Time is 6:48. The Raging Cajuns didn't have the best weekend. LSU did much better. We'll talk about that coming up.
Curing America.
The House of Representatives has once again passed a measure that would force ByteDance, the Chinese company which owns TikTok, to sell the app or face it being banned in the U.S. Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz commented on the problems he sees with TikTok while appearing on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures.
I think the Chinese Communist government can, number one, use that for surveillance and espionage of American citizens. And number two, they use it right now aggressively to push propaganda, anti-America propaganda to our young people.
During an appearance on CBS's Face the Nation, Virginia Democratic Senator Mark Warner agreed.
The idea that we would give the Communist Party this much of a propaganda tool, as well as the ability to scrape 170 million Americans' personal data, it is a national security risk.
If the bill passes Congress as a whole, ByteDance would have 9 months to sell the app. Kevin Uretsky, Fox News.
Prime Energy Solutions is currently offering a free 10-year warranty on air-cooled Kohler generators from now until May 10th. Purchase a home generator from Prime Energy Solutions and never worry about losing power again. Call them for more info or go to primeenergysolutions.com.
Faith House has been Acadiana's safe haven since 1981 for victims suffering from violent or aggressive behavior in the home. This includes physical, emotional, financial, or sexual violence. We provide shelter, safety, advocacy, and resources to survivors and their children to empower them to break the cycle of abuse. Domestic violence affects 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in their lifetime. In 2016, Faith House opened the Family Justice Center located downtown Lafayette, which houses law enforcement, prosecutors, civil legal services, and advocates under one roof to expedite the response time to domestic violence and reduce homicide rates. If you or someone you know is in need of assistance, please call our crisis line at 888-411-1333 to speak to an advocate. If you would like to support our mission, find us on Facebook under Faith House Acadiana or our website, faithhouseacadiana.com. On behalf of the survivors and children we serve, thank you for 39 years of care for those hurting in our community.
Wonderful forecast across Acadiana over the next couple of days. Getting a little bit of cooler weather here to start the week. Those temperatures going to sit down in the lower 70s. We'll get some evenings with the lows getting down into the 50s next couple nights as well. So things are looking pretty good. A lot of sunshine out there. Winds from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour, gusting maybe a little bit higher. We will start to see the winds become a little more southerly. We will be warmer and muggier by the end of the work week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
Still got that traffic signal malfunction, Johnston Street at Garfield. If you run up on that, remember, treat it as a 4-way. And the accident, Barrow School Road, very near Fortune Road. Police and sheriff are responding to that accident. Sun rising on a beautiful Monday morning. Current temperature 49 degrees. KPEL News Time is 6:53 on, it's Monday, right?
It's Monday.
We are trying to find the scores from, all the scores from this weekend's LSU baseball.
This is what it looks like, Tracy. It looks like LSU played Missouri over in, I believe, I forget the city they're in, but nonetheless, they played Missouri on Missouri's home field. Look, Missouri won Friday night. LSU won 12-1 on Saturday, and 6-2 on Sunday. So LSU wins the series, 2 games out of 3. Now LSU's not doing well this year. I'm not sure their record. There's something like 5-28.
Yeah, they are.
They're having a bad year for them. Look, let's jump back over to Lafayette right here.
Okay.
Let's start with the women softball.
Okay,
the women swept their series against Southern Miss at home at Yvette Girard Field. 3 games did they win, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That means that the Ragin' Cajun softball team has won 87 straight conference series.
Wow.
Winning a series means you win 2 of 3 games. 87 straight with no breaks in the action. That goes back to 2013.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Got to be a national record.
I would hope so. And then baseball, Cajuns didn't do too well. Or they did well in one game? Baseball?
Yes. Saturday was a doubleheader. They won the first game 8-6. They lost the second one 12-10. Man, that was a scoring fest. About 8 home runs were hit.
Yeah, I saw that.
Between the 2 teams. So
but they lost Friday night, didn't they?
They lost Friday night. They only won 1 of 3. Now, remember, baseball came into this series against Coastal Carolina. That's in Conway, South Carolina. And they had tied the record for the number of consecutive Sun Belt Conference wins.
Right.
They had tied South Florida's record of 14 straight conference wins, which goes back to 1986. The Cajuns could have set a new record had they won Friday night, but the series was broken.
Right.
Because they did not win Friday night. But still, they're doing very well. And look, and the women, we were kind of admonished by a listener, say, hey, you need to brag more about the women. Women's softball is doing very well, and baseball over at Louisiana Ragin' Cajun Land also doing very well.
The LSU gymnastics team, congratulations to them. They took home the grand championship over the weekend.
Yep.
Impressive score, 198.225. They beat out California, Utah, and Florida. Haley Bryant did a phenomenal job. I'm a big gymnastics fan. So congratulations to the LSU Tiger gymnastics team on that national championship. By the way, the Cajuns will be back at home on Wednesday night against Houston Christian. Tickets are on sale now at RagingCajuns.com. That game will start at 6 o'clock. KPEL News Time is 6:57. We have a look at Fox News and local news on the way.
The Fox Business Report is brought to you by Gulf Coast Bank, your local community bank. Whether your financial needs are for an individual, a business, or for the whole family, Gulf Coast Bank has the knowledge and products to serve you best. With 9 convenient locations throughout Acadiana, you're never far from a friendly Gulf Coast Bank associate.
I'm Elizabeth McDonald, and this is the Fox Business Report.
There's a merger in the pet insurance business. Insurance giant Chubb is buying Healthy Paws for an undisclosed amount. Healthy Paws currently covers more than 500,000 dogs and cats in the U.S. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has postponed his visit to India. He was expected to reveal an investment of $2 to $3 billion in India, focused on a new plant there. Musk is citing heavy obligations at Tesla. Its earnings are reported on Tuesday. He says he looks forward to visiting later this year. Tesla's cutting prices in the U.S., Europe, and China, a sign of weakening demand. Nissan motor shares are also losing ground. Nissan is lowering its estimate for the year, partly because of slower car sales. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosola, invested in you.
Donald Trump Jr. here. Since January of 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. You can't get that money back, but you can stop your losses by diversifying into a gold IRA from my friends at Birch Gold Group. To learn more, get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word SHELTER to 989898. That's SHELTER to the number 989898 to get your free info kit from Birch Gold now.
Message and data rates.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL, Breaux Bridge, Lafayette, broadcasting from the Matthew James Tax and Wealth Management Studios.
Anti-Israel protests on another college campus. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. This time, Yale University, where hundreds of students are right now staging pro-Palestinian demonstrations in New Haven, Connecticut, as police with riot gear stand by. While in New York City, Columbia University's president says classes will be remote today.
In a Sunday statement, she said the decision was made to, quote, de-escalate the rancor and give us all a chance to consider next steps. Campus protests have gone on for almost a week, and on Saturday, some Jewish students were targeted with anti-Semitic verbal attacks, resulting in responses from New York City Mayor Eric Adams, New York Governor Kathy Hochul, and the White House, denouncing calls for violence against Jews.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. Former President Trump will soon head back to court in New York for the start of his first criminal trial that he calls political persecution. Opening statements are today.
Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has brought these charges. He says the former president tried to interfere in the 2016 presidential race by paying off Stormy Daniels to hide their alleged affair, and part of a plan that paid off Playboy playmate Karen McDougal to hide their alleged affair, too. Also, American voters would not find out about the sex scandals.
As Fox's Eric Shawn outside the court, the former president is charged with falsifying records related to the Stormy Daniels payments. An NBC News poll gives the former president a 2-point lead over President Biden, but Fox's Peter Ducey reports from the White House.
When RFK Jr. and others are listed on a 5-way ballot, that is a sign that RFK could be hurting Trump more than he is hurting Biden. Biden is also found in this new survey to be the better candidate on the issues of abortion and unifying the country, but on every other major issue, he is trailing Trump.
Israel's intelligence chief has resigned. Major General Aron Aliva says he will carry the horrible pain of war with him forever after the agency he led failed to prevent Hamas's deadly terror attack. America's listening to Fox News.
Hey guys, Donald Trump Jr. here. Let me ask you this. Does inflation feel worse than what we're being told in the news? That's because the official inflation rate doesn't tell the whole story. Since January 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. You can't get that money back, but what you can do is stop your losses today. How? By diversifying your savings into a gold IRA from my friends at Birch Gold Group. When you're done, your money will be parked in a tangible asset with a proven history. To see how it works, get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word PROTECT to 989898. I trust Birch Gold. They provide an easy process to roll over your 401k or IRA into gold without losing your tax advantaged status. So text PROTECT to 989898. That's PROTECT to the number 989898 to get your free info kit on gold IRAs from Birch Gold.
Message.
Your 24/7 news source on air, online, and with the KPEL News app. Now the headlines from the KPEL News Center.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Wertz with a look at news on this Monday, April 22nd. The next round of 50 Louisiana National Guard troops have mobilized in support of Operation Lone Star at the U.S. border in Texas. Task Force Commander Captain Zach Neely says the Louisiana troops have integrated well with their Texas counterparts. National Guard troops have patrolled the southern border to prevent, detect, and deter illegal migrant crossings. The goal of two bills making their way through the legislature is to repeal the 3-year rule. It ensures property policyholders that their carrier cannot drop their coverage after 3 years. Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple says the bills are focused on revitalizing the insurance marketplace in Louisiana, but Ben Riggs with Real Reform Louisiana opposes the bills and says the state's insurance crisis is two-pronged: lack of availability and affordability. He says the bill would allow carriers to cancel up to 5% of their 3-year protected policies without cause. They would also have the option to cancel with more permission from the insurance commissioner, and those requests would not be subject to public disclosure. House Bill 611 and Senate Bill 370 are nearing final legislative approval. Baton Rouge Senator Cleo Fields would like to see every school bus in Louisiana have heating and air conditioning by August 1st, 2025, and there are federal grants available to help school systems pay for it. The president of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents says although many districts are already transitioning to climate-controlled buses, they may not be able to complete the task by the 2025-26 school year. Fields told the Senate Finance Committee he may change the wording of his bill to allow more time. The Louisiana Highway Safety Commission's Buckle Up in Your Truck campaign is running now through Saturday. The group is sponsoring the campaign because drivers of pickup trucks are less likely to wear their seatbelts, and those vehicles are more susceptible to rolling over in a crash. Research from the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration shows that 61% of all pickup truck drivers and passengers who were killed in rural areas were not wearing their seatbelts. In sports news, the Raging Cajuns lost 2 of 3 games against Coastal Carolina over the weekend. Louisiana couldn't overcome errors and walks and fell 9-1 on Friday. The Cajuns took game 2 on Saturday 8-6, but fell short in the third game 12-10. They returned to action on Wednesday night at the Teague against Houston Christian starting at 6 o'clock. Tickets for that game are available at RagingCajuns.com. LSU is a national champion in gymnastics for the first time in the program's 50-year history. The Tigers scored a 198.225 to beat out California, Utah, and Florida. The championship also cements Haley Bryant's legacy as the greatest LSU gymnast in history. LSU will hold a parade for the national champs on Wednesday. That's a look at your news. I'm Tracy Wertz. Your KPEL News Update brought to you by Home Furniture Plus Bedding, with over 40,000 furniture and mattress choices in stock and ready for delivery. Home Furniture Plus Bedding. Welcome home.
Mostly sunny skies across Acadiana today. A little cool out there this morning. It should be warming up fairly nicely. Temperatures eventually in the lower 70s. Winds today from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Staying nice and cool out there today. We'll be back in the low 50s overnight tonight, and a similar forecast coming up again for tomorrow. We'll start to warm up and be a little muggier by the end of the week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
Still showing an accident, Barrow School Road, just south of its intersection with Fortune Road. Current temperature 49 degrees. KPEL News Time 7:08.
To honor America and perform our national anthem, please welcome 3-time Grammy winner, Pink.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we marched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Good morning and welcome back into Acadiana's Morning News. Tracy Wirtz, Mark Pope joining you. Thank you for joining us on this sunshiny Monday morning.
Beautiful day.
KPEL News Time is 7:11. And you and I were kind of looking over the schedules for the House and the Senate. And there's a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I look at the schedules every day to try to figure out what's going on. A couple things have jumped out at me very high level. First is that the Senate doesn't like to meet on Friday.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they pass a bill saying that?
I don't
We do not
know.
like to meet. We shall therefore not meet on Fridays hereinafter.
I have no idea. They
Okay.
just don't like to vote. I mean, to meet on Fridays. I guess they, like those long weekends.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to believe you have a lot to do. You should probably, in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
You should probably go ahead and meet. But man, when you think about when you look at these agendas and you see all of this stuff from all of the various committees, I think about the fact that there were nearly 1,100 bills passed.
I know.
I mean, not passed. Sorry about that. Pre-filed. Will all of them make it to the floor? I don't know, but there's a heck of a lot of them. That's for sure. This one is intriguing to me and has been. I've kind of been watching it as a member of the media. It's something that I've been watching. It's a bill that essentially remove certain limitations, it says, on the release and dissemination of mugshots. Sometimes you'll read a story about somebody who's committed a crime or is alleged to have committed a crime, allegedly committed a crime, is accused. And there are only certain situations where legally the mugshot must be made available. And I believe that currently it is that have to be accused of a violent crime.
Mm-hmm.
And this would open that up to more people. Because, I mean, and I while I can understand not releasing it under some conditions, if someone is accused, like, for instance, when, I'm going to say when, I'm not going to say if, when the ATM thieves are caught, I'd like to know what they look like.
Yeah.
I want to know who they are.
Yeah.
Because they have been wreaking havoc, nationally, but closer to home, around Acadiana in multiple parishes.
Agreed.
So I would agree with this bill, and I'm kind of hoping that they give their blessing on it for that reason. I want to know who they are.
Yep.
Now, the argument could be made that they are innocent until proven guilty. Absolutely.
Sure.
But I think that those mugshots should be made available across the board.
Even pre-trial?
Well, right now they are that's what I'm saying. They're innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the media outlets I have noticed are putting that disclaimer, innocent until proven guilty.
Well, and that's not actually the now some of them may, but when those are released, typically it is the releasing organization that puts that on the photo.
Gotcha.
On the photo. And and I think part of it too is to protect people with the same name, who are not accused.
Right.
We had that situation, as a matter of fact, very recently with the triple homicide. Now, once he's arrested, we could see the photo, but there were a couple of people with his same name, and for probably 12 hours, the incorrect photo was circulating on social media. And yes, that's social media, but if law enforcement agencies would release that, then people wouldn't be calling, let's say, Joe Smith, that they know, and saying, "Oh, Joe, I heard you." No, that's not me. That's another Joe Smith.
Right. The moral of the story: be skeptical about things you see, especially on social media.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But had law enforcement been allowed or been willing to release that photo, then that issue may have been mitigated.
Chances would have been mitigated. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's just one of the things that they are considering in the Louisiana legislature. The list is long, and we continue to kind of comb through it. Some of the bigger initiatives, like the Gator Initiative, like the mandate for the 5-day school week, constitutional convention, those things have not made it to the agenda for final passage yet.
Right. 4-day week. You have a news story this morning about Baker High School, which is in East Baton Rouge Parish.
Right.
And what they're proposing is the good students with good attendance, good grades, would be eligible to attend school 4 days a week.
Right.
And those that aren't doing so well, don't have stellar attendance, would attend 5 days a week.
Right. It's and Friday would be like a remediation day.
Yes. Remedial, help those folks, those students that need help on certain subjects and so on. I like that. It sounds good on the surface.
Yeah. And it's just juniors and seniors.
Just, you see?
Yeah.
Even more so,
seniors.
the upperclassmen, as it were.
And if I'm remembering correctly, Baker and Zachary are an independent school district.
Not sure on that one.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain. I can verify,
sure.
but I'm
Okay.
fairly certain about that.
What is there? There was a town in East Baton Rouge Parish that broke away and formed their own, and now I'm drawing a blank.
I think that's Zachary.
How dare I do that?
No, I think that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up real quickly. You talk about the 4-day school week.
Yeah. It's interesting with these bills, and it's going to be. Look, June 3rd is still a little ways away. We have a little bit left in April, all through May, and then they'll be wrapping it up once we get to June.
Oh, and they are counting down the days. It was yes, both Baker and Zachary pulled away. Those are the two. I told you.
Yeah.
I know I get a lot of things wrong, Mark, but that I knew because I actually have friends who live in that area, and they were fairly excited when that happened, however long ago, because remember, our children are all adults now, and that was something that was interesting. So it will be interesting to see. And if the mandatory 5-day school week is in fact passed, I would suspect that this particular school district wouldn't pertain to them, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not that they're implementing a 4-day school week in the district. It's just saying it's a reward, a day off if you do well.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see if that particular bill passes. The 5-day school week, the mandatory 5-day school week, by the way, would not pertain to districts who already have 4-day school weeks implemented. They would be grandfathered in.
Gotcha.
So it is 7:19. Chris Babin with Better Business Bureau just walked in. What's the latest scam? He'll tell us after the break. KPEL News Time 7:20.
Fox on Tech.
Another hole opens in Apple's walled garden, at least in its European one. European regulators have been targeting Apple for monopolistic behavior, and that work has forced a number of changes in how Apple operates and builds its consumer tech. It was the EU's new laws that forced Apple to abandon its proprietary charging and data port called Lightning for something USB-C compatible. It was also the EU that pushed Apple to allow third-party apps not found on the Apple App Store, which developers complained charged unfair fees. And now in Europe, Apple may have to allow third-party payment platforms access to the phone's tap and pay tech, meaning they won't need to use Apple Pay to make use of that feature at retail stores. And while this affects European markets, Apple has its critics among U.S. regulators who could be seeking similar rules. With Fox on Tech, I'm Eben Brown, Fox News.
Wonderful forecast across Acadiana over the next couple of days. Getting a little bit of cooler weather here to start the week. Those temperatures going to sit down in the lower 70s. We'll get some evenings with the lows getting down into the 50s next couple nights as well. So things are looking pretty good. A lot of sunshine out there. Winds from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour, gusting maybe a little bit higher. We will start to see the winds become a little more southerly. We will be warmer and muggier by the end of the work week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
Still showing that accident, Barrow School Road, just south of its intersection with Fortune Road. Current temperature 49 degrees. KPEL News Time at 7:25 on this Monday morning. It is April 22nd. Tracy Wirtz, Mark Pope in with you. And as he is every Monday morning, is Chris Babin with the Better Business Bureau. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. Isn't the weather beautiful?
Oh, Mark and I have been talking about that. I called my husband this morning, told him happy birthday. It's his birthday.
Feels like it should be a Saturday.
I know.
It's a Saturday.
Yeah. Okay, can we do that?
It is festival week.
Yeah.
It is festival week. You are right.
It's like a long weekend all week.
Without a doubt. And we were talking off mic that the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has launched the No to Protect campaign. You may have heard that in the news. And Special Agent Jessica Zappardo said if your child is a victim of such abuse, do not delete messages, do not engage with the perpetrator, and don't contact local law do contact local law enforcement. Sorry about that. And she said that the problem is rampant in Louisiana. And this brings me to two different things I want to talk to you about. First of all, you had your forum last week at UL. It was the reason you had it there was because it was really targeted to young folks. Young adults. And you said there were some surprising statistics from the FBI that day.
Yeah, so we had a special agent from the FBI come in and talk about the cybercrime aspect. Of course, you know, they have experts in that field with the FBI that, you know, not only field complaints and deal with the situations, but actually look into where these things are coming from and have a pretty good understanding of how these things how these things happen and how scammers operate. So
Right.
a couple things. So the IC3 division, so it's the Internet Crime Complaint Center for the FBI. We refer a lot of consumers to that a lot when they contact us to make sure the FBI knows about things that are going on. Now, he said, it was a staggering statistic, that they get about 2,700 complaints to that website a day. 2,700 complaints a day. Now, that's not here in Acadiana. Obviously, that's nationwide. Probably even internationally. I wouldn't imagine that's used as much outside of the U.S. because it is the FBI's website. But of course, they're an international organization. But he also, the other staggering thing that he really focused on, going hand in hand with what you're talking about, is how often kids are targeted on electronic devices. And what he referred to as the Internet of Things, just anything that can connect to the internet. You have the opportunity to, scammers have the opportunity to take advantage of us. And some things that help make some of this make sense, even to us as, not experts in that field at the BBB, is, these Alexa devices and these different internet devices are made to connect to the internet. And they're not really made to be secure. They're more made as a convenience device, and people have fallen in love with them. However, scammers with the technology and the smarts that they have are able to take advantage of us through that. And it was just so surprising how often children are targeted by these scams that we talk about, but also even more so, sometimes even way worse situations.
I heard the term IoT or Internet of Things a couple of years ago. I'm sure it's been around more than that or longer than that, but it was a tough concept for me to wrap my brain around, Internet of Things. But then when you stop and think about your TVs, our TVs are hooked up to the internet.
Smart.
You might have an Alexa device or something in your kitchen that you listen to music on or even watch little shows on, your light bulbs, I don't know if they're going to target you, they're a light bulb, but you know what I'm saying? But those are anything that's connected to let's not talk about our computers, our laptops, our cell phones, a child's tablet that they watch videos on.
Right.
So when you think that, I think that's why they probably coined the phrase Internet of Things, because
whatever it may be.
Because it's hard to come up with a word to represent things. Right.
Well, and it's well beyond my, skill set and expertise. But my understanding is that anything that has the ability to connect to the internet with the person with the right technology, they have the ability to connect to it. On the flip side, which if they can connect to it and it's connected to a certain network, they may be able to connect to all these other devices through your home Wi-Fi.
And how frightening is that?
Including the child's iPad.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Yeah.
Absolutely scary.
We've seen television shows about it for years.
Right.
Black hats, they call them, or, whatever. Right. And it's real and it's frightening. And I think it's just about being responsible. And I don't feel like the good guys' technology, if you will, has caught up to what the bad guys are able to do.
Yeah, and that was kind of actually one of his points that he made. The internet, when it first came out, didn't have all of these things happening, and we use, it was meant to be a tool, I guess, and resources and sharing of information, and then it's developed into more of a toy. But scammers are using it as a tool.
Oh, yeah.
And they're progressively getting smarter and smarter and able to, every which way you turn, they've got a new method and new tactic. And
every day you get an email, a text alert or whatever that so-and-so's system and big companies have been hacked.
Oh, yeah.
Your information may have been compromised, So if there is a way for them to get into your pocketbooks, we already know that they'll figure it out, and they're just creating new ways. So hopefully, like I said, the good guys' technology catches up. We're going to talk more about targeting children. We're going to take a quick break because Chris attended an interesting event that I am sorry that I missed, but some information came out of that as well. KPEL News Time 7:31.
I'm Chad Pergram with the Speaker's Lobby. The U.S. helped shoot down Iranian missiles and drones bound for Israel recently. So does that mean the U.S. is involved in a shooting war with Iran? This comes down to interpretations of war powers and whether the Biden administration needs to seek congressional authorization to justify its actions. Multiple administrations have used the 2001 authorization for use of military force, or AUMF, for 9/11 and the 2002 AUMF for the war in Iraq and 2003 for a variety of additional operations abroad for decades now. The administration can use the War Powers Resolution of 1973 to justify any military action. The administration just needs to report back to Congress what it's doing abroad, sans a declaration of war or an AUMF. Under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Congress has the power to declare war. But under Article 2, Section 2, the president is commander-in-chief. Congress has only declared war 11 times. The last such declaration was in 1942 against Romania. With the Speaker's Lobby, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
I would like to share with our listeners that if you're thinking, oh man, I'm going to go to festival and walk around and my feet are going to hurt and my back is going to hurt and my knees are going to hurt, it's time to go to the Good Feet store right now before Festival International so that you can get those arch supports, so that you can put them in your shoes and you can have a great time walking around, dancing, visiting with friends. One of the things that I like is that you don't just have to wear one pair of shoes all the time. You can move the arch supports from one shoe to another. Sore feet, they are going to spoil your festival. Don't let them do that. Go to the Good Feet store today. They are on Ambassador Caffrey, right next to Chicken Salad Chick. Walk in. You don't need an appointment. You have questions? Go ahead and ask all the questions you need. If you are dealing with chronic pain, if you are dealing with a situation where when you walk around a lot, you know you're going to have a backache. You know your feet are going to hurt. You know your hips are going to hurt. Go try it out today. Ask the questions. Visit. They are located again on Ambassador Caffrey, right next to Chicken Salad Chick. Go by the Good Feet store before Festival International is upon us. This hour brought to you by Matthew James Tax and Wealth Management. Online at MatthewJames.com.
Your 24/7 news source, on air, online, and with the KPEL News app. Now the headlines from the KPEL News Center.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Wertz with a look at news on this Monday, April 22nd. The next round of 50 Louisiana National Guard troops have mobilized in support of Operation Lone Star at the U.S. border in Texas. Task Force Commander Captain Zach Neely says the Louisiana troops have integrated well with their Texas counterparts. National Guard troops have patrolled the southern border to prevent, detect, and deter illegal migrant crossings. The goal of two bills making their way through the legislature is to repeal the 3-year rule. It ensures property policyholders that their carrier cannot drop their coverage after 3 years. Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple says the bills are focused on revitalizing the insurance marketplace in Louisiana, but Ben Riggs with Real Reform Louisiana opposes the bills and says the state's insurance crisis is two-pronged: lack of availability and affordability. He says the bill would allow carriers to cancel up to 5% of their 3-year protected policies without cause. They would also have the option to cancel with more permission from the insurance commissioner, and those requests would not be subject to public disclosure. House Bill 611 and Senate Bill 370 are nearing final legislative approval. Baton Rouge Senator Cleo Fields would like to see every school bus in Louisiana have heating and air conditioning by August 1st, 2025, and there are federal grants available to help school systems pay for it. The president of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents says although many districts are already transitioning to climate-controlled buses, they may not be able to complete the task by the 2025-26 school year. Fields told the Senate Finance Committee he may change the wording of his bill to allow more time. Baker High School juniors and seniors who keep their grades up and have acceptable conduct in school will be rewarded with a 4-day school week. Superintendent J.T. Schroeder says instead of negative reinforcement for students, he suggested one with a positive twist. For students who don't make the grade, Schroeder says Friday will be dedicated to helping them work on subjects where they're struggling. Of the 75 students in each grade, Schroeder says about 25% of them would qualify for a 4-day school week, but he's hoping with this new incentive that number will grow. The Louisiana Highway Safety Commission's Buckle Up in Your Truck campaign is running now through Saturday. The group is sponsoring the campaign because drivers of pickup trucks are less likely to wear their seatbelts, and those vehicles are more susceptible to rolling over in a crash. Research from the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration shows that 61% of all pickup truck drivers and passengers who were killed in rural areas were not wearing their seatbelts. U.S. Department of Homeland Security has launched the No to Protect campaign to educate parents about the dangers of online sexual exploitation and how to protect their children. Special Agent Jessica Zappardo says if your child is a victim of such abuse, do not delete any messages, do not engage with the perpetrator, and do contact local law enforcement. She adds that the problem is rampant in Louisiana. Officials cut the ribbon Friday on a new $1 million playground at Parc Sanssouci in downtown Lafayette. The privately funded project next to the Children's Museum offers equipment designed for kids of all ages and abilities. In sports news, the Raging Cajuns lost 2 of 3 games against Coastal Carolina over the weekend. Louisiana couldn't overcome errors and walks and fell 9-1 on Friday. The Cajuns took game 2 on Saturday 8-6, but fell short in the third game 12-10. They returned to action on Wednesday night at the Teague against Houston Christian starting at 6 o'clock. Tickets for that game are available at RagingCajuns.com. LSU is a national champion in gymnastics for the first time in the program's 50-year history. The Tigers scored a 198.225 to beat out California, Utah, and Florida. The championship also cements Haley Bryant's legacy as the greatest LSU gymnast in history. LSU will hold a parade for the national champs on Wednesday. That's a look at your news. I'm Tracy Wirt.
Mostly sunny skies across Acadiana today. A little cool out there this morning. It should be warming up fairly nicely. Temperatures eventually in the lower 70s. Winds today from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Stay nice and cool out there today. We'll be back in the low 50s overnight tonight, and a similar forecast coming up again for tomorrow. We'll start to warm up and be a little muggier by the end of the week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
All right, still showing that accident on Vero School Road just south of its intersection with Fortune Road. We do show a stalled vehicle, West Congress and West Arnold. Hopefully it's on the shoulder of the road and won't cause you any issues as you get to work this morning. Current temperature 48 degrees. KPEL News Time is 7:42 on this Monday, April 22nd. Tracy Wirtz, Mark Pope joining you. And Chris Babin with the Better Business Bureau still hanging out with us. We've been having some really interesting conversations off air that we want to open up to you guys. The first one, as we mentioned in the last segment, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has launched their No to Protect campaign to educate parents about the dangers of online sexual exploitation and how to best protect their children. Following that thread, you attended and I'm really upset, by the way, that I missed it, the event a week ago Saturday with Jim Caviezel.
Yes.
What was it? St.
John Paul the Great Academy.
Yeah.
Their Veritas Mission of Truth. Jim Caviezel was the guest speaker. Had not been familiar, honestly, with the school very much, right. And not with their annual fundraiser either, but happened to see Jim Caviezel coming and, with Passion of Christ and Sound of Freedom and the movies that he's made, was anxious to hear the stories. And, there was a priest there that talked about their, facility that they created in Baton Rouge in 2018 for victims of sex trafficking. And, some of the statistics and stuff shared were just absolutely staggering.
Yeah, like?
They said since 2018, they have 16 beds there, and they've rescued 97 girls from sex trafficking, And his point from this, too, was that a lot of these things are going on right here, where a lot of times it's easy to think Nicaragua, Guatemala, all of these other, potentially third world countries, but 97 girls they've rescued, and 84 of them were Louisiana residents, girls from Louisiana, and almost half of those, from what they could figure out, had been put into the sex trafficking world from their own families.
My stomach just flipped.
It's very disheartening, obviously, to hear that. Kudos to Father Bahi and the work that they're doing, and the Catholic sisters that he's got working with him. I think it's in Zachary, technically, with his facility. But, it's almost, and the reason I guess we're talking about this is from our Scam Tracker Risk Report. Obviously, that's a different world.
Right.
But we do ask people with kids between the ages of 7 and 17, how many of your children have been targeted by scams? And it's about half of them. So that means you've got kids, you can argue 16, 17 is almost an adult, but way younger than that, starting at the age of 7, because they have access to these devices, are being targeted by people wanting to steal money, or even way worse.
Yeah, even worse. And, we just to kind of connect all the dots, we talked about the Internet of Things. And the Internet of Things means anything that is capable of hooking up to the Internet or that you have. And when we sit down and we really think about that,
it's like everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything.
And you said it earlier, not being an expert, but these bad guys are looking for networks they can hop into.
Right.
And pass information, steal information, whatever. But your kid has a tablet. It's hooked up to the internet. What can those scammers do? And whether it's stealing their identity, planting messages for them, or as this Know to Protect campaign, to abuse your child in some way. In some way, right. It obviously is a problem. And as Special Agent Jessica Zappardo said, and you might have heard in the news, it is rampant in Louisiana, and it is increasingly difficult or the challenges to protecting our children are greater than they ever were before, because we aren't connected as humans. We are connected digitally.
Sure. And it's, it's the point too that Father Bahi was wanting to make is that, a lot of times it's easy to think or to feel as though these situations aren't here. Like, some in Louisiana, but not Lafayette, right? Not Acadiana. Well, Acadiana just as much as Manhattan. Yep. I mean, it's everywhere. And thinking, I guess, that it won't happen to us, it won't happen to me, not on my child's tablet, is the worst mindset you can have.
Right.
Because it could absolutely be any electronic device, anything that can connect to the internet. They have the ability to exploit those vulnerabilities. And last thing I'll say, at our presentation this last week, the FBI agent, he said healthcare is really struggling right now. And when you first hear that, it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, the software, like they create, these software companies create these databases and these things that these healthcare professionals use for medications and notes and, all these things that.
And a lot of it's mandated because they had to go to electronic medical records.
Right. So it's all mandated. And there's this software created that maybe is 5 years old. The whole hospital system's using it. And it has vulnerabilities because scammers have figured out a way to exploit that particular type of software. The software itself cannot be patched in some of these ways to protect it from the scammers, if that makes sense. Like, it's too outdated.
Yeah.
Only a couple years old to fully protect itself because of the technology that's now there.
Yep.
That wasn't around when it was created. It was created with all these bells and whistles. But now, a couple years down the road,
build a better mousetrap.
Scammers know better. Now, you can't even protect it. So what do you have to do? Almost retrofit and outfit the whole hospital system with new software, new patches, new security. Those IT experts we have out there are really, really working to try to get this stuff figured out, because every day you wake up, there's something new. You walk out of Best Buy with a laptop, it's old.
Right. And, we were having a discussion, too, about when I think about it, I got my first iPhone less than 15 years ago. And the reason I say that, whether it was iPhone or Android, before that, it was the flip phone, the analog phones. I wasn't connected to the internet. wasn't Googling, wasn't getting email on iPhones. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And today, here we are, nearly all of us connected. And think about how quickly that all happened. And so it absolutely. I have a smart TV that I bought. It's probably in 2015. I know exactly when I bought it. I bought it in 2015, so it's 9 years old. And it's I need a new one because there are things that it won't do, apps it won't download.
I've been there.
You know
exactly. Yep.
And think about, our parents bought a TV in 1970, and we were still watching that sucker in 1985. No problems,
you get up
right?
and turn that knob.
Right? But things are moving fast. So when you say those things, it's not surprising because they're moving a lot faster. They are moving a lot faster.
They're running.
And hats off to law enforcement professionals, the FBI, all of those folks who are working each day to try to keep up with them.
Absolutely.
Chris, thank you so much. Interesting conversation this morning. We're going to take a break. KPEL News Time, 7:50.
Wonderful forecast across Acadiana over the next couple of days. Getting a little bit of cooler weather here to start the week. Those temperatures going to sit down in the lower 70s. We'll get some evenings with the lows getting down into the 50s next couple nights as well. So things are looking pretty good. A lot of sunshine out there. Winds from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour, gusting maybe a little bit higher. We will start to see the winds become a little more southerly. We will be warmer and muggier by the end of the work week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
All right, we have an accident on East Milton Avenue this morning. Still working that accident, Vero School Road, just south of its intersection with Fortune. And the accident on East Milton is right there at, it looks like South St. Blaise. It says 0 East Milton Avenue. It's in Youngsville, so just be careful as you travel that stretch of road. Current temperature's 48 degrees. I won't back down. KPEL News Time, 7:55. Moon Griffon, Mark just, and you heard it, Mark just kind of watched it because I got hot and bothered.
Yeah.
Moon's going to have Governor Jeff Landry on, and I think Heather Cloud by phone to explain this bill that essentially prohibits access to some public records. I'm not happy. Not happy.
Well,
I'm going to and that's my opinion. I'm not happy
Right.
as a journalist, as a proponent of the First Amendment. I am not happy about that.
It is a deep subject because it's going down into the details. As the cliche goes, the devil's in the details. And I think that's what this bill's addressing. It's not saying public records in general, but I'm going to be listening with very fine-tuned ears.
Me too, because here's the thing is I cannot support anything that limits public access to such things as records. Again, we talked about this the other day. There's already a limit to the information you can get when a public body is in litigation. And you don't have access to personnel records. And I think those are fine. When you go beyond that, got a problem, got a big problem. I just don't think that that's fair. And I find it, to be completely honest, hypocritical. Because if you're going to preach transparency on one hand and then find a way to limit our access to information on the other, it's what at the national level they're accusing Mike Johnson of.
Yeah, well.
But we want to do it here? What in the world? So I'm going to be listening.
This is my understanding. Things like memos, official records, those are, they're not trying to limit that. It's things like handwritten notes and conversations between individuals. That's my understanding of it. but I'll be listening.
Me too. KPEL News Time 7:57.
This Fox Business Report is brought to you by Walter Campbell and Deborah Pierce of Keller Williams Realty. For all of your commercial property needs, reach out to Walter and Deborah today.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Verizon earnings are coming in. Earnings top forecast, but its revenue was disappointing. The company says it was a strong year, and Verizon is on track to meet its financial goals for the year. Verizon shares are up 3%. Stock futures are recovering ground after last week's sell-off. Mideast tensions have eased, crude oil prices have moderated, and gold prices are softening. Clothing company Express has filed for bankruptcy protection in the U.S. and will close more than 100 stores. It also owns the brands Bonobos and Up West Express. America's biggest bank is closing its location on Wall Street. J.P. Morgan Chase shut down its branch at 45 Wall Street on Friday, ending more than 150 years of doing business on Wall Street. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Cosola, invested in you.
Donald Trump Jr. here. Since January of 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. You can't get that money back, but you can stop your losses by diversifying into a gold IRA from my friends at Birch Gold Group. To learn more, get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word SHELTER to 989898. That's SHELTER to the number 989898 to get your free info kit from Birch Gold now.
Message and data rates.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL, Breaux Bridge, Lafayette, broadcasting from the Matthew James Tax and Wealth Management Studios.
Palestinian protest on a college campus. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. That's at Yale University this morning. Hundreds of students angry over Israel's war in Gaza, demonstrating in New Haven, Connecticut. Fox's Madeline Rivera reports.
Cops arriving at the school, blocking off entrances to a plaza at the New Haven campus. Here's that police officer warning protesters they will be arrested if they don't clear out.
No one will stop you from leaving. If you do not leave, you will be arrested. We will give you time to leave.
The editor-in-chief of the Yale Free Press was covering the protest when she was suddenly surrounded by demonstrators. She told the New York Post she was stabbed in the eye with a Palestinian flag.
Now, the anti-Israeli anger is still simmering at Columbia University days after New York City police broke up an encampment, making more than 100 arrests. The university's president said all classes will be virtual today, trying to de-escalate the situation. Andrew Parker Stein is a Columbia student and just told Fox he no longer feels safe.
I promised myself after Saturday night, after our group was attacked by a mob of pro-Hamas supporters, that I'm not stepping on campus while this is happening, and I don't know what that means for finals. I don't know what that means for the rest of the semester.
Now, the Jewish holiday of Passover starts today. President Biden put out a statement saying we must speak out against the alarming surge of anti-Semitism. Former President Trump's on his way to New York court for the start of his first criminal trial this morning.
We will hear the case against Donald Trump today, and we will hear the case for him as opening arguments begin in this historic and sensational trial.
Fox's Eric Shawn outside the courthouse.
The former president, when he arrives or leaves, he makes statements. Today we expect no difference. He will likely continue to harshly attack this case.
He's charged with falsifying records and 2016 payments to keep an alleged affair quiet. The search continues in Chicago for a cop killer. Whoever shot Officer Luis Huesca on his way home from his shift early yesterday morning. America's listening to Fox News.
Hey guys, Donald Trump Jr. here. Let me ask you this. Does inflation feel worse than what we're being told in the news? That's because the official inflation rate doesn't tell the whole story. Since January 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. You can't get that money back. But what you can do is stop your losses today. How? By diversifying your savings into a gold IRA from my friends at Birch Gold Group. When you're done, your money will be parked in a tangible asset with a proven history. To see how it works, get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word PROTECT to 989898. I trust Birch Gold. They provide an easy process to roll over your 401k or IRA into gold without losing your tax advantaged status. So text PROTECT to 989898. That's PROTECT to the number 989898 to get your free info kit on gold IRAs from Birch Gold.
Message and data rates may apply.
As pro-Palestinian protests rage at some U.S. college campuses, the head of Israeli intelligence has resigned. for the failure to prevent what Major General Aron Oliva calls a black day, the deadly Hamas terror attack that triggered the war in Gaza. He says he'll carry the horrible pain of the war with him forever. The U.S. is getting ready to send more military aid to Israel and Taiwan, and $61 billion worth of long-delayed support to Ukraine to help battle Russia's invasion. The House approved it over the weekend to the dismay of some Republicans who oppose additional Ukraine funding and are angry the House Speaker allowed the vote.
The Senate will vote this week on a $95 billion foreign aid and national security package sending assistance to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. Some Republicans have been furious with House Speaker Mike Johnson and are calling for him to resign. Indiana's Victoria Spartz isn't one of them, but also isn't holding back her opinion of the speaker.
I think he's doing a terrible job.
Much of the frustration comes from the price tag and the lack of southern border security measures in the bill. But allies of the speaker are firing back. Kentucky's Andy Barr accusing hardliners of preventing border security from being attached because of their refusal to support Ukraine aid. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
That foreign aid bill also includes a revised TikTok provision that could lead to the social media app being banned in the U.S. if TikTok does not cut ties with its Chinese parent company ByteDance. On Wall Street, stock futures rising before the opening bell this hour. A bad boy of rock and roll going into the Hall of Fame. And joining Ozzy Osbourne in the Hall of Fame for rock and roll, Foreigner, Peter Frampton, Dave Matthews Band, Jimmy Buffett, along with also some non-rock performers like Kool and the Gang, A Tribe Called West, Mary J. Blige, Dionne Warwick, and Cher. I'm Dave Anthony, and this is Fox News.
Your 24/7 news source, on air, online, and with the Cape Hill News app. Now the headlines from the Cape Hill News Center.
Good morning. I'm Tracy Wertz with a look at news on this Monday, April 22nd. The next round of 50 Louisiana National Guard troops have mobilized in support of Operation Lone Star at the U.S. border in Texas. Task Force Commander Captain Zach Neely says the Louisiana troops have integrated well with their Texas counterparts. National Guard troops have patrolled the southern border to prevent, detect, and deter illegal migrant crossings. The goal of two bills making their way through the legislature is to repeal the 3-year rule. It ensures property policyholders that their carrier cannot drop their coverage after 3 years. Insurance Commissioner Tim Temple says the bills are focused on revitalizing the insurance marketplace in Louisiana, but Ben Riggs with Real Reform Louisiana opposes the bills and says the state's insurance crisis is two-pronged: lack of availability and affordability. He says the bill would allow carriers to cancel up to 5% of their 3-year protected policies without cause. They would also have the option to cancel with more permission from the insurance commissioner, and those requests would not be subject to public disclosure. House Bill 611 and Senate Bill 370 are nearing final legislative approval. Baton Rouge Senator Cleo Fields would like to see every school bus in Louisiana have heating and air conditioning by August 1st, 2025, and there are federal grants available to help school systems pay for it. The president of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents says although many districts are already transitioning to climate-controlled buses, they may not be able to complete the task by the 2025-26 school year. Fields told the Senate Finance Committee he may change the wording of his bill to allow more time. The Louisiana Highway Safety Commission's Buckle Up in Your Truck campaign is running now through Saturday. The group is sponsoring the campaign because drivers of pickup trucks are less likely to wear their seatbelts, and those vehicles are more susceptible to rolling over in a crash. Research from the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration shows that 61% of all pickup truck drivers and passengers who were killed in rural areas were not wearing their seatbelts. In sports news, the Raging Cajuns lost 2 of 3 games against Coastal Carolina over the weekend. Louisiana couldn't overcome errors and walks and fell 9-1 on Friday. The Cajuns took Game 2 on Saturday 8-6, but fell short in the third game 12-10. They returned to action on Wednesday night at the Teague against Houston Christian starting at 6 o'clock. Tickets for that game are available at RagingCajuns.com. LSU is a national champion in gymnastics for the first time in the program's 50-year history. The Tigers scored a 198.225 to beat out California, Utah, and Florida. The championship also cements Haley Bryant's legacy as the greatest LSU gymnast in history. LSU will hold a parade for the national champs on Wednesday. That's a look at your news. I'm Tracy Wertz.
It's time to win cash. Get your KPEL News apps ready because here's your chance to win up to $30,000. Just enter the following code into your KPEL News app where it says win cash and make sure you listen for more codes throughout the day because the more codes you enter, the better your chances. Here is your next code.
And your first code of the day is 468. Your 8 a.m. code is 468. Good luck, everybody.
Mostly sunny skies across Acadiana today. A little cool out there this morning. It should be warming up fairly nicely. Temperatures eventually in the lower 70s. Winds today from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Stay nice and cool out there today. We'll be back in the low 50s overnight tonight, and a similar forecast coming up again for tomorrow. We'll start to warm up and be a little muggier by the end of the week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
Okay, taking a look at the traffic board this morning. We now have a vehicle accident with injuries. Youngsville Highway and Ambassador Caffrey Parkway in Broussard. Be very careful. Milton Avenue in Youngsville, there's an accident. Hopefully that one has been moved off the roadway and isn't causing any slowdowns. Current temperature 48 degrees on a beautiful sunshiny Monday morning. KPEL News time is 8:12 on this Monday morning, and it is a beautiful Monday morning. It's going to warm up nicely today, as you heard Daniel say, to the lower 70s. Chamber of Commerce weather. I know that's what Rob Perillo used to call it. Actually, it's 53 degrees in the last half hour. I kid you not, the temperature has risen 5 degrees. In with us this morning to talk all things health is Ashley Berthelot with Professional Arts Pharmacy. Good morning first, Ashley.
Good morning, Tracy.
It's good to have you in. But before we get into that, there's something that you want to share with our audience.
Yes, it's kind of been all over the news this past week that one of our employees had an untimely and unexpected death. And to step up to the plate to help her family, we wanted to let everyone know that we have set up a 529 educational savings plan to benefit the 3 children of April Rollins, who was killed last weekend. And anyone can contribute to that fund that's going to help set her 3 boys up for their educational futures. And so any donations that are given can be split between the 3 of them. Mm-hmm. And it's all going through UBS Financial Services. Anybody can write a check directly to there. And if they need to find the address of where to send it, they can go to Professional Arts Pharmacy's Facebook page, and the posting about April Rollins at the bottom is the address of where they can send any of those donations if they felt so inclined to give.
Okay. And for those of you, as Ashley said, we did the story last week. April was killed in what was ultimately, or at its core, a domestic violence situation that was extremely tragic. So if you are able or feel so inclined to give, as she said, Professional Arts Pharmacy, they have the information at their Facebook page. Okay, let's flip over and talk about weight loss, because Professional Arts Pharmacy has done something that really nobody else is offering right now. Tell us about it. Oh, they are offering it? Okay, she said, well, I think they are. But you guys developed your own formula.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
We do have a different formula for that.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us what it is.
Well, there are these GLP-1 medications that everybody wants to get their hands on. There are significant drug shortages regarding them from the injectables that people want to get. And so compounding has a unique way to change the delivery route or give opportunities to get the medication in a different way. Mm-hmm. Now, given that there is a drug shortage, we can compound the injectable if we would like. However, our pharmacy doesn't do sterile. But what we've done instead is put this medication called semaglutide in a sublingual drop. And what is sublingual? That sounds so fancy, right? That means under your tongue.
Okay.
So underneath your tongue has tons of blood vessels and all these things that it's a really great drug delivery system. It's just not widely used. And so we use a special compounding base, which means like it's what you mix it in. That we put the semaglutide in that helps push it through the tissue area underneath your tongue. Now, can you put that in any old sublingual base, compounding base, and it work? No. And the reason why is because the GLP-1 medications like semaglutide are big, fat molecules. And they don't like to get pushed through things very easily. And so the base that we use is unique and proprietary, that there's a technology in it that helps push what's called high molecular weight, or the big fat molecules, through the sublingual tissue. And we have absorption studies to prove that it is getting through. And so it's a really great way to deliver drug. And this is a new way we've been doing it for semaglutide. We've been dispensing this for just over 2 months, and we have hundreds of patients on it already that are very happy. They're losing weight with minimal side effects, which was kind of surprising because this is a drug that everybody knows kind of makes you feel kind of icky at first. But we're hearing great reports of like, nope, I didn't have hardly any side effects. It was very minimal, and I'm still doing well on it.
Yeah. And as I thought through this and we talked about it, with the injectables, they may be great, they may get great results, but two things came to mind. Number one is, I don't know if I want to push a needle through my own skin.
That's a common complaint, or concern of people who would like to take that medication, but they don't want to take a shot.
Right. And the other thing, and you said this really early on when we talked, and that is the frequency with an injectable. Once it's in, you got to deal with it for a whole week.
Yes, the way that injectables are delivered, it's a once per week injection typically, whereas with the drops that go under the tongue, it's a daily dose. So it takes a little bit more work, I guess you could say, because you got to do it daily, but it gives your body that more even amount of drug delivery and dosing. And if you're someone who is having an adverse event to it, like some severe GI issues, you just stop taking it.
Yeah, it's just that simple. It's not like in your body forever and ever, amen, which makes a big difference.
I have to ask a dumb question, Ashley. Okay, so you're talking about the availability of this. This does have to be prescribed by a medical professional, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It is a prescription. In fact, all compounds are prescriptions.
That's what I figured. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so it's been out for about 2 months. You're hearing great stories then.
Yes.
Any that come to mind off the top of your head?
Well, it kind of varies. We had in the very beginning, we had some people say they lost like 8 pounds in the first week, and I'm like, really? And they were like, yeah, it allowed them to change what they were eating. They've tried dieting before and it didn't really work. And they said, I was finally able to stop eating junk food. And that was a significant contributor to their weight loss. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then we hear the other stories that I think are more common and typical of like 1 pound per week, like that's what's considered healthy weight loss. And so I think those stories kind of vary. I haven't heard yet of anyone who's just flat out said it hasn't helped them at all. I think that each person's unique and how their body is going to handle the medication on the type of results they'll see. But, we always want to hit home on is that whether it's the shots or the drops, they're not magic drugs.
Right.
You have to do your part. It's not something that you take a medication and you keep eating the way you have been eating or having a sedentary lifestyle. It's meant to assist you to get to those goals. Like those patients were saying, where they were like, I was all of a sudden able to stop eating junk food, or I gave up Cokes, or whatever was their vice.
Right.
It helped them stay away from that easier.
No. And let me tell you, especially women of a certain age who have started going through menopause and that kind of thing. And, your body's rebelled against you. And, people say, oh, Trace, are you retired? I was like, no, just my metabolism. That has decided to just stop working. But I've told my doctor often, I just need that jump start. I need something to support my efforts because, again, if you're over a certain age, your body reacts differently. And I think that this is a great way to jumpstart. I have a friend who's been on, some of these things, and she said the same thing. I needed something to jumpstart. And this is a great way to do it if you have those reservations about, that's the thing I think about. I don't want to stick myself with a needle every week. That doesn't sound fun to me.
You're right. Well, and I think in general, weight loss medications have gotten a bad rap because some of the ones that were introduced, 10, 20 years ago were really just about appetite suppression and making people feel speedy. Mm-hmm. And so there's a negative connotation associated with weight loss medication, whereas this whole new class of drugs that came out that were really originally indicated for type 2 diabetes, that they had this unique side effect of weight loss. And people were like, So what's different and really cool about these GLP-1 meds is that it is telling the brain, turning off that hungry signal, kind of like the old ones, but it also helps with your metabolism. Mm-hmm. It's helping your body process food better. So it's not just psyching you out to tell you you're not hungry, which is why it was working with the type 2 diabetes patients in the first place, was that it was a metabolic function.
And I've seen studies, and you may or may not be able to talk to this, but I have read several articles about what they're seeing as, again, positive side effects from these drugs and people who are on the GLP-1s, I think you called them, reducing your risk of heart disease. And I think that probably has to do with the fact that you're losing weight.
It does. In fact, it was a 20% reduction in cardiovascular disease, which was what the study showed.
Yeah, boy, don't we need that? Can we just put it in the water in South Louisiana? That would be great.
Right?
We can still eat it. We just won't want as much. But they are finding some of these positive side effects that go beyond weight loss.
Yes, it's one of the most studied medications right now, this entire drug class. There's studies, a mile long, that are going on with positive results.
Right. And because as I think back to before these really became a thing, right? They started being widely prescribed. Obesity had become a disease. It had become something that was causing so many other physical problems that, physicians wanted to treat it. So now we come up with something and we can maybe finally start to combat that problem.
And they were doing great with the shots to start with, despite the patients who maybe not want a needle. Yeah. But there's, like FDA listed drug shortages for all of these medications because the demand is so high.
Mm-hmm. And and if it's working, then do it. And you mentioned all of the other drugs prior to this, the speed type drugs, and I'll say, Adipex, those kind of things that were causing more dangerous side effects, high blood pressure, that kind of thing. And so now we have something that could actually contribute to our overall health beyond just weight loss. And now you have a delivery system that doesn't involve needles. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. And, and there's no perfect magic drug, right? Every medication, no matter what you take, even Tylenol and ibuprofen, has a risk associated with it or potential adverse event. And so it's really going to be up to each person to speak to their healthcare provider to see if that medication is right for them.
And speaking of talking to your healthcare provider, since this is something that is relatively new, what sort of conversation should they have with their healthcare provider?
Well, they can say that they heard Tracy on KPEL talking about this new compounded medication called, semaglutide that's drops under the tongue, and they're interested in it. And they can also call the pharmacy to get more information about it that we can share with them to give to their healthcare provider. But it's really about just starting that conversation and seeing if it's a fit for them.
Mm-hmm. Semaglutide, correct?
Semaglutide.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
KPEL News Time is 8:24. By the way, if you need more information, you're like, that's kind of intriguing. Professional Arts Pharmacy. Give us the number, Ashley.
337 991-0101.
And if you didn't catch that, then they've got a Facebook page where they have where you can get access to all their information, or just Google them, Professional Arts Pharmacy. One more time,
991-0101.
There you go. Professional Arts Pharmacy. Call them today about the semaglutide sublingual drops. Intriguing. KPEL News Time, 8:20.
Fox on Tech.
Another hole opens in Apple's walled garden, at least in its European one. European regulators have been targeting Apple for monopolistic behavior, and that work has forced a number of changes in how Apple operates and builds its consumer tech. It was the EU's new laws that forced Apple to abandon its proprietary charging and data port called Lightning for something USB-C compatible. It was also the EU that pushed Apple to allow third-party apps not found on the Apple App Store, which developers complain charged unfair fees. And now in Europe, Apple may have to allow third-party payment platforms access to the phone's tap and pay tech, meaning they won't need to use Apple Pay to make use of that feature at retail stores. And while this affects European markets, Apple has its critics among U.S. regulators who could be seeking similar rules. With Fox on Tech, I'm Eben Brown, Fox News.
News Talk 96.5. KPEL. Right now, traffic.
All righty, let's take a look at traffic. Major accident with injuries. Youngsville Highway at Ambassador Caffrey in Broussard. Current temperature 53 degrees. KPEL News Time is 8:29 on a beautiful Monday morning. Sunshine, 53 degrees, on our way up to the lower 70s today. Tomorrow may be a little warmer than it was this morning, and we'll climb back near the 80-degree mark. Ron, you ready? We were visiting. Ron Chakowski with the Acadiana Planning Commission joining us this morning, and it's Monday, Ron. What can we say?
A happy Monday. Yeah, there you go. You brought in the sunshine.
That's right.
I hope so.
You can take credit for that. We'll let you. We'll let you do that. You had a good weekend, Ron?
I had a good weekend. I hope everybody else did as well.
We did.
Unfortunately, those days passed by very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree with you. All right. So what are we talking about today?
I have a couple of things I'd like to talk about today.
Sure.
One of them is a topic from a few weeks ago that I wasn't able to touch on. And I know it's of key interest, and that's the Acadiana Fiber to the Home project.
Oh, yes.
That the Acadiana Planning Commission has been working on. Essentially, this started back in 2021. Now, you got to understand that the city of Lafayette is nationally and even internationally known for its gigabit affordable municipal fiber service. Unfortunately, many communities outside Lafayette Parish don't have access to this.
And some communities inside of Lafayette Parish don't have access to it.
Absolutely. An example of how poor the service is, Ville Platte, the town of Ville Platte, has been identified as having the 5th worst average speed in the nation, not state, nation. So in 2021, the Planning Commission applied with the National Telecommunications and Information Administration broadband infrastructure program to expand high-speed service. This is a $288 million project. It includes portions of Evangeline Parish, northernmost portions of Acadia Parish, western portions of St. Landry Parish. A total of 11 municipalities will be in this coverage area. They include Arnaville, Basile, Cankton, Chateauneuf, Church Point, Eunice, Grand Coteau, Mamou, Pine Prairie, Sunset, and Ville Platte. This includes, and this is important, 20,000 households approximately, over 3,700 businesses, 12 fire stations, 9 police stations, 2 parish or local government buildings, 4 hospitals, and I think it was really key, 19 schools are going to be impacted by this. With all of this said, this covers about 40,000 people who reside in this area who will now have access to state-of-the-art fiber that they didn't otherwise have. Partners participating in this are the parish and police jury of Acadia Parish, Evangeline Parish, and St. Landry Parish. The Planning Commission will serve as the lead, since they're the applicant, for the parishes, and will assume primary and operational and financial responsibility for completing the project as it moves forward. This is a huge thing because when it's something we take for granted around here. We all have access to high-speed internet. And if you've chosen the LUS Fiber plan for your internet provider, you really have been spoiled. Even the slowest speed is faster than pretty much anything else out there.
Right.
These areas that have not had this, and in particular, I bring up schools because internet access for computers that are now integral in education, I think this is going to be one of the biggest impacts. And then when you throw in 2 government buildings that otherwise didn't have that high-speed internet access.
And I think about hospitals. You mentioned hospitals.
And it really, you kind of sit back and scratch your head and wonder, why is it that, it's taken so long that these areas didn't have this? So it's a big, 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 impactful project. But $288 million.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's the kicker. And again, I know just enough about this to be dangerous, is the cost of running fiber I don't think significant is a big enough word. It is expensive to run, and it's expensive to connect folks. So when you look at areas like that are hugely rural, where you have people who aren't right next door to each other, like in a lot of the Lafayette neighborhoods, there may be 2 or 3 acres that separates these properties. It costs a lot we're talking tens of thousands of dollars to get from one house to the next.
Well, and clearly all of that expense is seen as a good and wise investment because it's going to pay for itself,
right?
In quotes, obviously. It's going to pay for itself by what it brings to the communities that are going to be impacted by this. It's just hard to imagine that we have communities in this state that did not have access to high-speed internet.
Right.
And I used Ville Platte as an example. Town of Ville Platte didn't have access to that. And you kind of think to yourself, how can that be?
In 2024. Yeah.
And there are a lot of communities. Ville Platte isn't right next to Lafayette Parish, but there are some communities I mentioned that are almost on top of Lafayette Parish, and they didn't have access to this. And that's coming. And then it's huge.
And when you look at it, too, there are definitions that have been put in place for what qualifies as adequate internet service in terms of download and upload speeds, mostly download speeds, because the majority of us use that far more than we use an upload speed.
Absolutely. And this particular project is going to provide a pricing tier that delivers at least 100 megabits per second download and 20 megabits per second upload at an affordable price. And that price is $60 per month for low-income households, at or below $60 a month for low-income households. It's probably fortunate I have no clue what I pay for my internet service because I know it's not cheap. It's we pay for the luxury of having internet, and it's really neat that this service, state-of-the-art service, is going to be available at what is essentially a very affordable price.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and be right back. KPEL News Time, 8:36.
This is Poll Paris with Fox News Director of Polling, Dana Blanton.
We just released Fox News Battleground State surveys. Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. All states President Biden narrowly won in 2020, and all states where he ties or trails Donald Trump in a hypothetical two-way race. They tie in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Trump is ahead by 3 points in Michigan and 6 in Georgia. Neither advantage is outside the polls' margin of error. fair. It's noteworthy more voters disapprove than approve of the job Biden is doing by at least 10 points in each state. However, a big reason the races are close is in each state, about 10% of those disapproving still support Biden over Trump. When third-party candidates are included, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. receives single-digit support. The big question is, who does he hurt? In these states, Kennedy's backing comes a bit more from Trump than Biden. But other third-party candidates, Cornel West, Jill Stein, siphon a few points from Biden without taking from Trump. I'm Dana Blanton, and that's your poll parade.
Mostly sunny skies across Acadiana today. A little cool out there this morning. It should be warming up fairly nicely. Temperatures eventually in the lower 70s. Winds today from the north at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Staying nice and cool out there today. We'll be back in the low 50s overnight tonight, and a similar forecast coming up again for tomorrow. We'll start to warm up and be a little muggier by the end of the week. From the Storm Team 3 Weather Lab, I'm KTC meteorologist Daniel Phillips on News Talk 96.5 KPEL.
News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Right now, traffic.
Vehicle accident with injuries, Youngsville Highway at Ambassador Caffrey. That is in Broussard, so be careful in that area. Hopefully that will be cleared up soon, and hopefully everybody is okay. Current temperature is 53 degrees. KPEL News Time is 8:40 on this Monday morning. Tracy Wertz, Mark Pope, and Ron Jakowski with the Acadiana Planning Commission joining us this morning. Always a topic of interest, Ron, is construction and what's going on and what's on the horizon.
Okay. And now these are projects that I'm going to be talking about that aren't going to be starting tomorrow, but they are on the books to begin.
Okay.
It's better than a lot of the projects that we see going on.
I'm going to make notes.
In some cases. Both of these projects are going to impact the community of Carencro.
Okay.
That wasn't necessarily by choice. It was by chance that those were the ones that I pulled. The first one I want to talk about is at East St. Peter Street and North Church Street in Carencro. This project is going to address sidewalks, specifically replacing existing sidewalks with ADA compliant sidewalks along with water line improvements that will be funded from a separate program. This is in the downtown area of Carencro. And there's if you have if you're a resident of Carencro and you use the downtown area, you live in the downtown area, you can see exactly what we're talking about, why the sidewalks need to be improved, why this was a project that got the attention that it did. And because the sidewalks are outdated, they're falling apart, dilapidated, this is going to make them easier for pedestrians to navigate, particularly those with physical limitations.
And Mayor Charlotte Stemmons-Clavier has talked about that when she's come on and how excited she is about that project.
It is. If you by chance go to the Fenster Maker Facebook page, there is a little video they did, which really shows kind of how run down, the situation is and why these improvements are going to be really big for the community. And this is a $2.6 million project and was bid in December. So hopefully it'll be beginning soon.
I'm going to have to go watch that. Maybe I'll grab it and put it on our website too.
I actually looked at it last Friday, right before walking out of the office, and I was impressed. So I wanted to make sure to make it a point to say something about it because I think it does put a spotlight on the issue and what they're going to do to address it. Excuse me. The next project is a pavement widening, roundabout widening, and a sidewalks project. This is going to be in the area of the Hector Conley exit on the east side, where the roundabout in Carencro is over there by the Super One. This is a $4+ million project. And what it's going to do essentially is going to address the closing the crossovers with ramps, widening of the roundabout to accommodate safe turnarounds and movements, and then sidewalks. And again, sidewalks, I think something we take for granted because at some point every day everybody's a pedestrian. But there are people that depend on being a pedestrian to get around.
Right.
And we have to be able to do our thing to get people to and from the places they need to be. Where do they need to go? They need to go to Super One. They need to go to Walmart. They need to take care of their business at the businesses that are in those locations. This project was developed in conjunction with the Karen Crowe Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Chief David Anderson, a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
This is a project that's going to, it won't begin until the planned construction is 2028. I know that sounds like a long way off. Really, time will fly as they begin to prepare for that. But this is a continuation of existing I-49 interchange projects that was recently highlighted as being very successful in reducing crashes. And if you notice, a lot of what we're doing goes toward crash mitigation. Mm-hmm. We start talking about projects, we want to reduce the number of serious injury and fatal crashes along with providing a better infrastructure, a better way for people to move around. What's key in some of these areas that, again, I think is overlooked is the fact that we have a high number of people in our communities, and I say communities plural, that are dependent on bicycles or as pedestrians to get around.
Right.
We have an obligation to make it safer for them, better for them to be able to go about their business, do their grocery shopping, run whatever errands they need to run, and get their things done in their life.
Right.
And these projects are big, and I'm gonna hand it first to Mark. I brought along a little map. It's not the best, but the photograph.
Because he comes up with the clever questions.
But it comes out. It shows where the sidewalks are going to be placed in the areas that that the project is going to impact.
Now, this is the one you're talking about by Super One at Hector Connolly. I know exactly which one you're talking about. Relatively speaking, that's not a real old roundabout.
It's not, but at the time that it was built, it wasn't built to the federal highway standards that would allow for the turning maneuvers and stuff like that. That then, obviously we now realize, it needs to be able to do. There are large number of larger vehicles that go through that roundabout, and if they need to make a full, turnaround,
like 18-wheelers,
then it needs to be expanded. And again, and I've talked about this, and it's going to come up when we talk about future projects, but roundabouts are not cheap. They it's not just a matter of going out there and laying down a bunch of concrete. Now, a lot of the work that's going to be done on this has been done with previous projects, but only to a degree. Mm-hmm. The roundabout that you're looking at there in that photo is not near large enough to address what it needs to.
Mm-hmm. And this may be a question for later, and we may have talked about it at some point, and then we'll need to take a break. But Scott, we've talked to Jan Scott Richard a few times. Their roundabout works, but man, sometimes coming off that interstate right there, and especially if you have to take a left, do you guys have your eyes on that area at all?
Not currently. Okay. With all the changes that take place, and we've talked about roundabouts a lot, but we also can talk about this with J-turns and stuff. These things force drivers to begin to interact with the act of driving. They're going to get back involved with driving. When you get off the interstate, you're heading either direction, but you're coming into Scott, you immediately see the setup that they have. Right. You have to pay attention. And that is essentially what we want you to do as a driver. Mm-hmm. I want you to pay attention to what you're doing. I want your eyes on the road, hands on the wheels, and be aware of what you're doing. That all of that together, when it comes to when it comes together, this is all about safety.
Absolutely,
and keeping vehicles moving.
And that last part is why I asked the question. And look, kudos to Mayor Jan Scott Richard doing a great job there. A lot of growth. A lot of people want to go there for good reason. The Apollo Road opening, all of those different things I think have contributed to the increased traffic at that interchange coming off of interstate. I was myself coming off interstate there, and my daughter or somebody was with me, and I needed to go left because I needed to go north. And I was going to take a right turn. And she said, Mom, look, it's clear you can go left. I said, I wanted to make sure because I was just going to go around the roundabout and then, do that kind of that, make my own modified J-turn. But I have seen people at that interchange coming off the interstate and trying to turn left. And the traffic on the ramp was just backed up because it's difficult at certain travel times to make that left turn.
Yeah, and obviously a left turn is currently not prohibited, but you're only talking about a couple of times a day where you're gonna run into something like that. And then the worst thing of it is if you do miss your exit, so to speak, on a roundabout, you can go around again and come right back to it.
I joked when roundabouts first came up. I said, that's going to be me just going round and around and around and around and around. All right, Ron, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Have a great day, and we will be right back. KPEL News Time, 8:49. Store and get sticker shock. You need to go to Rouse's Markets. Their weekly sale is on, and y'all, the prices are fantastic. Chairman's Reserve 100% premium USDA Angus choice beef boneless top sirloin steaks. They are value packed at $5.99 a pound. First of the season, fresh, sweet Vidalia onions straight from Georgia, only 77 cents a pound. That's a savings of almost 50%, 72 cents a pound. And 24-pack of 12-ounce Pepsi soft drinks, just $7.97. That's a savings of $5.02. Go to Rouse's today. Don't miss out, too, on the $5 sale. Big savings at Rouse's Market during their weekly sales. It's another great way to save at Rouse's Markets. 4 locations in Lafayette and 1 in New Iberia. KPEL News Time is 8:51. Getting into the last segment of the Monday morning show, April the 22nd. Tracy Wirtz, Mark Pope. And I want to say thank you so much to the folks who have called in and engaged with us on the app this morning. Doug, when we talked about the vehicle fire that was being reported, Johnston and South City Parkway, he messaged us and said, no car on fire or accident. So that's good. And when we report those accidents, it is because Lafayette, we follow the Lafayette Police website that gives us a real-time look at the things that they are responding to. Now, whether or not they're there, we kind of rely on you guys to help us out and to help us understand what's happening on the ground. We are still showing that accident, by the way. It is a major accident, meaning there's an accident with injuries. Youngsville Highway at Ambassador Caffrey, and another just popping up, Youngsville Highway at La Nouvelle. So be careful in those areas. If you're blowing right through, that means they've moved them off the roadway, and hopefully no serious injuries reported. You can download our app and chat with us anytime. Also, Mark, I want to remind folks to download the app so that you might be able to win cash. Cash.
Good thing.
Up to $30,000. That's nothing to sneeze at. As my financial guy says, that's nothing I'd walk over on the sidewalk. Wouldn't pass that up. But coming up just after 8 o'clock, we'll have another win cash code. Or no, not 8 o'clock. I'm sorry. You heard it at 8 o'clock. Yes, 9 o'clock. Thank you. You'll hear another win cash code. And then you go to the app, you put it in, and you are in to win money. And you don't have to do anything else other than that. Listen and download the app. Those two things, and you're in to win some money.
Yep.
Tomorrow, the trooper will not be in. He is traveling this week, but we will have our Real Talk About Real Estate segment and probably talk more about what's happening in the legislature. And both you and I will be talking to Moon as he talks to Governor Jeff Landry today and Heather Cloud about the Public Records Access Bill. KPEL News Time 8:53. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. God bless.
The Fox Business Report is brought to you by Gulf Coast Bank, your local community bank. Whether your financial needs are for an individual, a business, or for the whole family, Gulf Coast Bank has the knowledge and products to serve you best. With 9 convenient locations throughout Acadiana, you're never far from a friendly Gulf Coast Bank associate.
I'm Neil Cavuto, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Express, the once popular mall-based fashion chain, has filed for bankruptcy protection in the U.S. and will close more than 100 stores. It operates more than 500 locations under the Express brand and other names. It has a buyout offer from retail investor WHP and 2 mall landlords. Bitcoin's price is higher, topping $65,000 after the cryptocurrency completed its halving event on Friday, which cuts the issuance of new tokens in half. Nissan Motor shares are losing ground after it lowered expectations for this year, saying car sales are softening. Tesla shares are down more than 1.5%. CEO Elon Musk has postponed a trip to India, and Tesla is also cutting prices again. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosola, invested in you.
Donald Trump Jr. here. Since January of 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. You can't get that money back, but you can stop your losses by diversifying into a gold IRA from my friends at Birch Gold Group. To learn more, get your free info kit on gold IRAs by texting the word SHELTER to 989898. That's SHELTER to the number 989898 to get your free info kit from Birch Gold now.
Every day at 5 p.m. right here on News Talk 96.5 KPEL, it's me, Joe Cunningham, with The Joe Cunningham Show, offering you news, analysis, and commentary you're not going to get anywhere else. The big news stories of the day, and even some of the headlines you may not be aware of. It's your local, state, and national news coverage from a local perspective right here. Every day, News Talk 96.5 KPEL. Check us out, The Joe Cunningham Show, every day at 5 p.m.